With Deadlock seeming more and more complete with each update, we are slowly but surely getting closer and closer to a 1.0 release. But even with all the progress, Deadlock is still missing some key features, like a draft system, retention tools, and a much needed rework to the jungle. So in this video, I'm going to talk about all that and more of what I want to see in Deadlock 1.0. So go ahead and throw me on your second monitor while you listen to me yap, or you can enjoy the very mid-rem gameplay in the background. Starting off with the obvious, a draft system and a proper ranked game mode. I can't wait for them to add a draft and a ranked game mode because as someone who plays competitive games to be competitive, it can be very frustrating when I get teammates who are just goofing around. But at the same time, I can't get mad at them because this is just a game and you definitely should be allowed to goof around, and there's only one queue, so the serious players and the goofy players are getting put into the same games. So I'd love to be able to split these up. And in the same sense, I want to be able to goof around, but I feel like I can't because there's only one game mode, and that game mode is ranked. I also think they need to add some retention tools. Deadlock is super fun as is, and I definitely will play it even without them, but the game won't feel complete without them. Adding something like earnable titles or badges to put on your profile to show off is really important for keeping players invested. Or even something as simple as just a level system, so that every time I see that I am 400 levels above everyone else in the lobby, I can reflect on what horrible life decisions led me to no life a MOBA. Another thing is Deadlock needs more heroes. There are currently 38, but I think somewhere around the 45 to 50 heroes would be a good place to launch. Keeps the game from being too overwhelming with tons of heroes, but it allows for enough variety for the draft system I mentioned earlier to have a ban system. Having too many heroes is a bad thing, and I used to play League of Legends, and one of the things I disliked was just how many heroes there were. They have so many to the point that all their heroes are starting to feel very similar. If you've ever played League of Legends, you know just how many 3-hit passives there are, or how many dashes on E. Keeping the total amount of heroes will allow the devs to make heroes feel very unique. And I think a game like Deadlock will be able to get away with this because heroes in Deadlock can be played in more than one way. Like Ivy, she can be played as a gun carry, a support, or a spirit damage carry. This is unlike League of Legends, where most but not all characters are more or less shoehorned into one specific playstyle. But enough talking about League of Legends, this is a Deadlock video. Let's talk about the jungle. The jungle in Deadlock needs a rework, and as much as I love the little Mike Wazowski looking guys, they need to go. I'd love to see some different types of jungle camps. There is this evil flower looking model that was leaked in the game files a while ago, and they can have some unique attacks too instead of just doing some damage to you. Instead of just doing straight up damage to you, maybe these guys put up a debuff on you, kind of like how Shiv knives work, where it's a stacking poison effect. Obviously way less damage than Shiv knives, but you can get the point. Another idea for a camp could be this big stone golem that charges up a big attack, and maybe if you get hit by it, it will encase you in stone or something like that. Now, with these camps being a little bit more difficult, I think they should give a little bit more of a reward. Why not make it so when you clear the camp, it gives you a specific golden statue buff based on what camp it was? So the flower guys would give you either cooldown reduction or maybe spirit damage, and the golem guy could give you health. I just think this would be a cool way to rebalance the jungle and make it a little bit more interesting, especially in a game with as much depth as Deadlock has. Having souls that are just waiting to be collected be your jungle is kind of lame. On the topic of jungle, I'd also love to see a new neutral objective, and I want to see a mini-boss. And I have a few ideas on how this could work, but my favorite idea right now is to replace the double sinners with it. This would allow for something new, interesting, and dynamic to fight over, rather than just reusing the sinners as a high priority neutral objective. I think it can cause a lot of cool little skirmishes, because that's something that's really missing from Deadlock. Every fight seems to be these giant team fights. There's not a lot of little 1v1s, 2v2s happening, and I think adding something like this could definitely introduce more of those skirmishes. The walkers in Deadlock are also a bit dated. I'd love to see a new walker as well as some new mechanics. I don't think that taking the walker should be any more difficult than it is when they're undefended. However, I do hate that even if you're defending a walker, the enemy team can kind of just ignore you and take the walker. I think that adding something like how the patron resistant works, whereas if there's heroes nearby, it gets resistance. Now, I don't think there should be immunity, and it should still be able to be taken. I think it should just have resistance to encourage actually fighting the people off the walker. This is a PvP game, not a PvE game, and I actually want to fight people. So forcing people to actually fight to take the walker efficiently, I think would be a great change. Deadlock also needs more HUD elements. And this is going to be a bit controversial, but hear me out. The mod Quality of Life Lock basically needs to be added to the game. Now, there are some things that are definitely cheating and feel like cheating and shouldn't be added, but there's also a lot of things that this mod adds that definitely should be in the game. Things like your soul difference without having to do the math yourself. Being able to tell how much resistance you or the enemy team gets with the urn or the new unstable rifts is very important, and can change your decision on if you're even going to try and fight it, or if instead you should try and take an objective on the other side of the map, like a walker. Another thing that I think needs to be added to the game is character portraits getting grayed out when they're not on the map. Now yes, you can look at the minimap and see, but sometimes in big team fights that are going on the other side of the map, it's hard to see everyone's profile at a glance. The game is giving you the information, it's just really hard to read, and that's not a skill issue, it's a UI problem. Another quality of life feature is the extended quick buy. It shows how much you need to get to the next item in your quick buy queue, and I know this just seems like I hate doing math, but I don't think having in real life math skill checks adds any form of value to this game. Deadlock is already a really hard game to get into, so let's not add being able to do math as a prerequisite for playing the game. I'd also love to see some more customization options for things like the color of outlines, or if there even are outlines, or being able to resize your minimap and move it around, or make it somewhat translucent. A lot of these things are in the game, but you need to actively go out of your way to find the command to change it in the console, or even worse, you need to go into the game files and change their values with a text editor. This needs to be a regular option in the options menu so regular players can customize their experience to suit them. Something else I'd love to see in Deadlock 1.0 is some kind of PvE mode. I'd love to see something like Man vs. Machine from TF2, or even what the Overwatch 2 PvE was supposed to be, but very much toned down in scope, as I don't want this game mode taking too much of the spotlight away from the main MOBA game mode. Another thing Deadlock will desperately need at launch is a good tutorial. Now this is necessary to get new players into the game. Having different levels of tutorial too would be really nice. Have something that's a very basic that shows the basic controls and gameplay, like dash jumping, sliding, and they'd also need to explain the basic MOBA mechanics like securing souls and pushing towers, buying items, and mid-boss. But then also having some more specific advanced tutorials, for example, a movement tutorial, that you can then optionally do that covers things like using heavy punches to extend your dash, or edge boosting and mantle sliding. Making a good tutorial for a game as complex as Deadlock, while making it simple and concise to understand, is really tricky. Trust me, I know, I've been struggling to make my beginner's guide for weeks now, because it's hard to talk about everything a new player would need to know, but also not overwhelming them with all this tech. But I have confidence that the brilliant game designers over at Valve can cook up something great. Now, there's something I'm a little bit on the fence about, but I still want to talk about it because I think it'd be a cool idea. And that is increasing the map size. I think there should be more on the outside of the outer lanes. Maybe a camp or two and some boxes, but adding that extra flanking route could add a lot to the game. I think will allow for so many more interesting early game skirmishes where you're trying to invade the enemy's outside jungle, but end up bumping into them as they had the exact same plan. You having a little 1v1 outside of lane would be really cool. Just giving you more reason to leave lane, because right now sitting in lane with your partner and doing box runs in between waves is kind of boring and predictable. But I'm going to leave this video there. Let me know what you think about my Deadlock 1.0 wishlist, and if you have anything to add or discuss of what you want to see in Deadlock 1.0, so please leave it in the comments, as I'm more than happy to theory craft and discuss new ideas down there. And if you made it this far, please consider dropping a like and subscribing. Okay, bye.